My wife is missing. She's 6 months pregnant. The 911 call came in at 11:47 p.m. on a humid August night. David Chen's voice cracked as he spoke to the dispatcher. My wife is missing. She's 6 months pregnant. She was supposed to be home hours ago. Within 72 hours, Sarah Chen would be found dead in a wooded area 15 miles from her suburban home. The investigation that followed would expose a double life, 2 passionate relationships, and a web of lies that stretched back months. This is the story of a woman caught between the life she was expected to live and the one she desperately wanted, and how that conflict led to her murder. Sarah Chen appeared to have everything. At 28, she worked as a pediatric nurse at Riverside Medical Center, lived in a 2-story colonial in the quiet suburb of Millbrook, and was expecting her first child with her husband of 4 years, David. Their social media profiles painted a picture of domestic bliss, weekend farmers markets, home renovation projects, and excited posts about the upcoming arrival of their daughter. They were the kind of couple you'd see and think, "That's what I want someday," recalled neighbor Patricia Martinez. Sarah would be out gardening while David washed the car. They'd wave at everyone who passed by. But photographs can lie. And in the Chen household, the truth was far more complicated than anyone suspected. The cracks in their marriage had started showing 18 months earlier when David lost his job as a financial analyst. While he searched for new employment, Sarah's income became their lifeline. The power dynamic shifted, and with it came resentment. David became increasingly controlling, Sarah's colleague Janet Williams would later testify. He'd call the hospital constantly, wanting to know where Sarah was, who she was with. He'd show up unannounced during her lunch breaks. It was during this period of marital strain that Sarah met Rebecca Foster. The 32-year-old physician's assistant had just started at Riverside Medical Center, and the 2 women were assigned to the same pediatric wing. What began as a professional friendship evolved into something deeper. Their connection was immediate and intense. Rebecca understood Sarah's passion for helping children, her frustration with her husband's possessiveness, and her growing doubts about the life she'd built. Text messages recovered from Sarah's phone revealed the progression of their relationship. "I've never felt this way before," Sarah wrote to Rebecca in February. "When I'm with you, I feel like myself for the first time in years." By March, their relationship had become physical. Sarah began using her work schedule to cover for their meetings. She'd tell David she was picking up extra shifts or attending training seminars. In reality, she was spending that time with Rebecca, often at Rebecca's apartment across town. The pregnancy complicated everything. Sarah had discovered she was expecting in early April, just as her relationship with Rebecca was intensifying. She'd been trying to conceive with David for 2 years, undergoing fertility treatments that had strained both their finances and their relationship. Now, when their marriage was at its weakest, she was finally pregnant. Sarah was torn apart by guilt, her sister Lisa would later reveal. She wanted to be a mother more than anything, but she was also falling in love with Rebecca. She didn't know how to reconcile those 2 parts of herself. David, meanwhile, was ecstatic about the pregnancy. He threw himself into preparations, painting the nursery, researching the best car seats, and posting regular updates on social media. To the outside world, the pregnancy had revitalized their marriage. But the encrypted messaging app on Sarah's phone told a different story. She and Rebecca exchanged hundreds of messages daily, ranging from the mundane to the intimate. They discussed a future together, one where Sarah would leave David after the baby was born. "I know it's complicated," Rebecca wrote in June, "but we'll figure it out. You, me, and the baby. We'll be a family." The deception required careful orchestration. Sarah created false entries in her work calendar, used cash for purchases to avoid credit card trails, and became an expert at deleting digital footprints. But maintaining a double life takes its toll, and by August, the stress was becoming unbearable. On August 18th, everything began to unravel. Sarah had told David she had a prenatal appointment that afternoon, but she'd actually planned to spend the day with Rebecca. They'd booked a hotel room in the neighboring town, a small celebration for Rebecca's birthday. That morning, David received a call from the obstetrics clinic. They were confirming Sarah's appointment for the following week and wanted to know if she needed to reschedule. The receptionist seemed confused when David mentioned the appointment supposedly scheduled for that day. "There must be some mistake," he said. "She left for her appointment an hour ago." David's suspicions, already simmering for months, boiled over. He called Sarah's cell phone repeatedly, but she didn't answer. He drove to the hospital, but her car wasn't in the employee lot. By 6 p.m., when Sarah finally returned home, David was waiting. Their neighbor, Patricia Martinez, heard the argument from her backyard. "It was loud enough that I considered calling the police," she recalled. "I heard David yelling about lies and betrayal. Sarah was crying. Then I heard a door slam, and one of their cars peeled out of the driveway. That was the last time anyone saw Sarah Chen alive." David called 911 at 11:47 p.m., nearly 6 hours after the argument. He told the dispatcher that Sarah had stormed out after their fight and hadn't returned. He'd assumed she'd gone to her sister's house to cool off, but when he called Lisa, she hadn't seen or heard from Sarah. "I'm worried," David said on the recorded call. "She's pregnant and she's emotional. This isn't like her." The patrol officers who responded to the missing person report noted that David appeared disheveled, but cooperative. He explained about the missed prenatal appointment and their subsequent argument, though he downplayed its severity. "We've been stressed about money and the baby," he told Officer James Mitchell. "Sometimes we argue, but she always comes home." As the hours passed with no word from Sarah, the investigation intensified. Her cell phone was going straight to voicemail, and her credit cards hadn't been used since that morning. Detective Maria Rodriguez was assigned to the case and immediately began constructing a timeline. Security footage from a gas station near the Chen home showed Sarah's Honda Civic heading east at 6:23 p.m. The car appeared to be following another vehicle, a blue Toyota Corolla that investigators would later identify as Rebecca Foster's. "That's when we realized this wasn't just a simple missing person case," Detective Rodriguez explained. "We needed to expand our investigation." The discovery came at dawn on August 21st. Mark Thompson, an early morning hiker, had ventured off the main trail in Millbrook State Park when his dog began barking frantically. In a small clearing, partially concealed by fallen branches, he found Sarah Chen's body. The crime scene told a story of violence and rage. Sarah had suffered blunt force trauma to the head and manual strangulation. Defensive wounds on her hands suggested she'd fought back against her attacker. Most disturbing of all, the medical examiner found evidence of trauma to her abdomen, indicating the killer had specifically targeted her pregnancy. This wasn't a random act of violence, the medical examiner, Dr. Patricia Huang, concluded. The killer knew the victim and acted with intense personal rage. Physical evidence at the scene was limited, but significant. Tire tracks in the soft earth matched common all-season tires used by thousands of vehicles. Investigators found a distinctive metal hairpin near the body, rose gold with a small butterfly design. Most intriguingly, forensic technicians recovered synthetic fibers from Sarah's clothing that didn't match anything she was wearing. The investigation now had two primary suspects, each with motive, means, and opportunity. David Chen, the controlling husband who discovered his wife's deception, and Rebecca Foster, the lover who wanted Sarah to leave her marriage. David's alibi began to crumble almost immediately. He claimed to have been home all evening after Sarah left, working on freelance consulting projects. His laptop did show activity during that time period, but investigators discovered the entries were simple mouse movements and keyboard strokes that could have been automated. More damning was the cell tower data. David's phone had connected to towers along the route to Millbrook State Park between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., contradicting his claim of being home. When confronted with this evidence, David's story changed. "Okay, yes, I followed her," he admitted during his second interview. "I saw her get into Rebecca's car. I wanted to know where they were going, but I lost them in traffic and came home." Investigators also discovered that David had researched divorce laws and child custody procedures in the weeks before Sarah's death. His browser history showed searches for adultery impact on custody and protecting assets in divorce. He knew about the affair, Detective Rodriguez noted, and he was preparing for a legal battle. Financial records revealed another potential motive. David had taken out a life insurance policy on Sarah 2 years earlier, with himself as the sole beneficiary. The policy was worth $500,000, with a double indemnity clause for accidental death. Rebecca Foster presented a different, but equally compelling profile. When investigators first approached her, she seemed genuinely shocked by Sarah's disappearance. But her story quickly began to show inconsistencies. Rebecca initially claimed she hadn't seen Sarah on August 18th, that they'd canceled their plans due to Sarah feeling unwell. However, hotel records showed Rebecca had checked into the Mountain View in that afternoon, and surveillance footage captured Sarah's car in the parking lot. "We spent the afternoon together," Rebecca finally admitted. "But she left around 5:30 to get home before David suspected anything. I stayed at the hotel. Alone. Text messages recovered from both phones painted a picture of an increasingly frustrated Rebecca. In the weeks leading up to the murder, she'd been pushing Sarah to leave David immediately. "I'm tired of being your secret," she wrote on August 10th. "Either you choose us or I'm done." Rebecca's past also raised red flags. She'd been involved in 2 previous relationships with married women, both of which had ended badly. An ex-partner had filed a restraining order against her in 2019, alleging harassment and threats after their breakup. "Rebecca doesn't handle rejection well," the ex-partner, who requested anonymity, told investigators. "When I tried to end things, she became obsessive. She'd show up at my work, my home. She threatened to tell my family about us." The forensic evidence complicated the picture further. The synthetic fibers found on Sarah's body matched a jacket belonging to Rebecca, a distinctive purple windbreaker she'd worn in security footage from the hotel. However, soil samples from the crime scene matched dirt found on a pair of David's work boots. Both suspects had their DNA at the scene, but both had explanations. David's DNA was found on Sarah's clothing and jewelry, but as her husband, this wasn't necessarily incriminating. Rebecca's DNA was found on Sarah's neck and hands, but she claimed this was from their intimate encounter earlier that day. The metal hairpin proved to be a crucial piece of evidence. Sarah's sister identified it as a gift she'd given Sarah for her birthday, one that Sarah always wore. The pin had been bent and showed traces of blood that matched neither Sarah nor the 2 suspects. This suggested a struggle, Dr. Huang explained. The pin was likely pulled from Sarah's hair during the attack and damaged in the process. As investigators dug deeper into Sarah's life, they uncovered a web of secrets that extended beyond her romantic relationships. Her diary, discovered hidden in her desk at work, revealed the depth of her internal struggle. "I feel like I'm drowning," she wrote on July 15th. "David suffocates me with his need to control everything. But Rebecca is pushing too hard, too fast. I love her, but I'm scared of what she might do if I don't leave David soon enough." Another entry, dated August 1st, was even more troubling. "Rebecca said something yesterday that frightened me. She said if I didn't choose soon, she'd make the choice for me. I don't know what she meant, but the look in her eyes." Sarah had also been receiving anonymous text messages in the weeks before her death. The messages, sent from burner phones, contained threats and intimate details about her affair. "I know what you're doing. End it now, or everyone will know the truth. Your baby deserves better than a lying mother. Choose your family, or lose everything." Investigators traced the burner phones to purchases made with cash at various convenience stores. Security footage from these stores was inconclusive, showing individuals in hoodies and baseball caps who could have been either suspect. The diary also revealed that Sarah had been planning to leave both relationships. She'd been in contact with a women's shelter in another state and had secretly saved $3,000 in cash. An entry from August 17th, the day before her death, read, "After the baby is born, I'm leaving. Starting fresh somewhere new, just me and my daughter. I can't keep living these lies. I need to find out who I really am, away from both of them." This revelation shifted the investigation's focus. Both David and Rebecca had motive to kill if they discovered Sarah's plan to leave. But who had found out? Digital forensics provided a potential answer. On the morning of August 18th, someone had accessed Sarah's email account from a computer at Riverside Medical Center. The access occurred during Rebecca's shift, and the IP address traced to a terminal in the pediatric wing. The user had opened emails related to the women's shelter. When confronted with this evidence, Rebecca's demeanor changed. "I was worried about her," she said, her voice cold. "I had a right to know if she was planning to leave me." Phone records showed Rebecca had called Sarah 17 times between discovering the emails and their afternoon meeting. Sarah had answered only once, a conversation that lasted just 30 seconds. As the investigation progressed, prosecutors faced a dilemma. Both suspects had strong motives, opportunities, and connections to physical evidence. The district attorney's office considered the possibility that David and Rebecca had acted together, but no evidence supported this theory. The two had never met and showed genuine animosity toward each other during the investigation. The case went to trial in February, with David Chen charged with first-degree murder. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Michael Torres, presented a case built on digital evidence and David's controlling behavior. David Chen murdered his wife in a rage when he discovered her affair, Torres told the jury in his opening statement. He followed her that night, confronted her in that wooded area, and killed both her and their unborn child rather than lose control over her life. The prosecution presented cell tower data placing David near the crime scene, the soil evidence, and testimony from friends and family about his possessive behavior. They argued that David had discovered the affair weeks earlier and had been planning Sarah's murder, using his supposed work-from-home alibi as cover. A particularly damning piece of evidence was a draft email found on David's computer, written but never sent. "I know about Rebecca. I know everything. You've destroyed our family, but I won't let you take my child. One way or another, this ends tonight." The defense, led by attorney Catherine Walsh, painted a different picture. They argued that Rebecca Foster, driven by jealousy and fear of abandonment, had killed Sarah when she learned about the plan to leave. "My client is guilty of being a flawed husband," Walsh told the jury. "But the real killer is the woman who couldn't accept that Sarah Chen was choosing her child over their affair." The defense highlighted Rebecca's history of volatile relationships, the fiber evidence, and her admission to accessing Sarah's emails. They suggested that Rebecca had lured Sarah to the park under the pretense of a romantic encounter, then killed her when Sarah confirmed she was leaving. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with both sides presenting expert witnesses and character testimony. Sarah's sister Lisa provided some of the most emotional testimony, describing Sarah's fear of both her husband and her lover. "She felt trapped," Lisa said through tears. "She told me she was afraid of what David might do if she left, but also terrified of Rebecca's intensity. She just wanted to be free." The jury deliberated for 4 days. On March 2nd, they returned a verdict, guilty of murder in the first degree. David Chen was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. But the story didn't end there. 2 months after David's conviction, new evidence emerged. A jogger came forward who had seen a blue Toyota Corolla leaving the park area on the night of the murder. The witness had been out of the country during the trial and only learned about the case upon returning. This testimony, combined with continued pressure from David's appellate attorney, led to Rebecca Foster being charged with murder. Her trial began in September, with prosecutors arguing she had killed Sarah in a jealous rage after learning about the escape plan. The second trial revealed additional evidence, including a witness who placed Rebecca near the crime scene and new analysis of the hairpin that found microscopic skin cells matching Rebecca's DNA in the bent portion of the metal. Rebecca Foster was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The truth of what happened that night in Millbrook State Park may never be fully known. Did David follow Sarah and kill her in rage? Did Rebecca lure her to the park and murder her when she refused to leave David immediately? Or did they somehow both play a role in her death? What is known is that Sarah Chen died seeking something most people take for granted: the freedom to live authentically. Caught between a controlling husband and a possessive lover, she paid the ultimate price for wanting to choose her own path. The case sparked important conversations about domestic violence in all its forms, the unique challenges faced by those discovering their sexuality later in life, and the resources available to people feeling trapped in relationships. Sarah's daughter was never born, but her legacy lives on through the Sarah Chen Foundation, established by her sister Lisa. The foundation provides support and safe housing for individuals escaping controlling relationships, regardless of gender or sexual orientation. Sarah always wanted to help people, Lisa said at the foundation's opening. She believed everyone deserved to feel safe and free to be themselves. We're making sure her dream lives on. In the end, Sarah Chen's story serves as a reminder that love should never come with conditions, control, or fear. She sought freedom and authenticity, but found herself trapped between two people who claimed to love her while ultimately seeking to possess her. Her diary's final entry, written the morning of her death, perhaps said it best. "I just want to be happy. I want my daughter to grow up seeing her mother living truthfully, whatever that looks like. I hope someday she'll understand that I tried my best to find my way." Sarah Chen never got the chance to find her way, but her story continues to light the path for others seeking their own freedom, one step at a time.